foundations. Just a little refresher for you. Just out of curiosity, how many of you guys used Ufli last year? Okay, yeah. So you're all relatively new to it. Welcome. I just want to tell you how easy Ufli is to use, just from my own personal experience. I got a hold of actually no, I didn't even have the manual yet. I found the program and I said, hey, what's this Ufli thing? Or I found this thing and it's University of Florida, and our AIC said, you mean Ufli? I'd never even heard it called Ufli. And she was like, I said, I think so, University of Florida, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, it's Ufli. And she said, oh my gosh, yeah, we got manuals for that. I said, are you kidding me? I want to use it with the MLs that I'm doing, that I help in the mornings. And so I said, I think it'd be a great way for them to learn, phonics, phonemic awareness, all of that. And it looks like it's kind of easy. And so I taught myself how to do Ufli before I ever had any training. So I started using it like September, October, got trained in the spring, figured out, I was excited because I was doing it the right way. But once I got trained, there were so many little nuances to the program that I didn't know about. That hopefully I get to reveal that to you today. So when you get started, you'll know everything off the top. So here we go. In your book, this is just kind of like a little content thing for your manual. The very front of your manual, the first part, is basically all about background knowledge on how this program was developed by University of Florida. If you guys don't know, University of Florida Literacy Institute is amazing. You get on their website and read it. I would love to go there and get some sort of degree, or at least some sort of training from them. It's really cool. They just are kind of no nonsense, very teacher friendly, student friendly. It's all based on the science of reading, and they have managed to come up with this program that honestly I have not seen. Students have not been able to make progress on it, but there's something else there, right? They've had to, either they've been referred for ECE services, things like that. So I cannot imagine either our ML students or our regular students not making progress using Ufli. So anyway, I would absolutely encourage you to read again. I showed you my little sticky notes in here about all kinds of things. And if anything, just kind of go through and look at the charts. The charts give you a lot of information. If you don't have time to read every word, go through and look at the charts, because you will kind of find the why of the Ufli program in those charts. So anyway, getting started, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Your implementation guide is part 2. And if you guys have seen there, when you look at the lesson sequencing or the scope and sequence, which is right after the front part, it tells you, you don't have to worry about what order you're teaching it in. You teach it from front to, from the first lesson to the end lesson. However, if you are first, second, third, fourth, or fifth, you can forego the beginning lessons. They have like intro lessons, getting ready lessons that start A through F. That is basically teaching the routine. If you're kindergarten, I would leave that up to you, right? Whether or not you want to do the getting started lessons. If you have students who are starting on A or part 1 at the beginning, lesson number 1, then you would start on page 62 with the letter A, short A. And so if you look, it's basically a scripted lesson. It's very routine, very ritually oriented. You're going to do the same thing every day with these kids. When your kids come to you for Ufli, they should know immediately what's going to happen next. That's how routine it is. And that's very reassuring to some students. It is. I think they look forward to coming to Ufli. After the implementation guide, toward the back you have instructions and materials, and then resources, probably the most important part of the book. After you teach a lesson, there's a progress monitoring assessment that goes along with it, okay? So if you will look back on page, I want to show you where those are. Page 355. And this starts the progress monitoring for you, okay? If you're starting at lesson 1, lesson 1 is a practice. Lesson 2 is a practice. Lesson 3 and lesson 4, they're all practices. So in other words, you're gonna practice that routine and prepare your students for what's gonna happen then in lesson 5, okay? And it shows you exactly what you need to do. The new concept is short A for lesson 1. The word is a, or however you pronounce it. And the irregular word or the heart word that you're teaching is the, and that's it. There's no sentence that goes along with it. So, the way you would progress monitor or practice that is you would give your students one of these, right? Of course, there's more numbers and blanks than you need to start with, but that's okay. You're going to give them the letter A, or the word A or and then for heart words, you're going to give them the word the. And that's it. And again, this one's not scored, it's practice. Okay, you're just teaching them the routine. When we get down to lesson 5, you are going to actually give them a spelling assessment or a progress monitoring assessment. So for that lesson, on lesson 5, at and mat are the 2 words. So you would give them at and mat. And then their heart word for this one is and. No, is it? Yes, and, sorry. And then their sentence is, I sat. Easy enough, right? And if you look, I had someone ask me, how do you score this? Everything that you give them is 1 point. Okay, so each blank. So on this one, it's going to be 3 points for the new concept. Actually, no, it's not. Okay, I lied. Oh, no, it is. Okay, no, it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Everything is 1 point. So for new concept, it would be at, mat, and then the heart word and. So each one of those count 1 point. And then I sat. I counts a point, sat counts a point. Okay? So it's going to be 5 points total. And at the top, it'll tell you lesson blank, so you can put lesson 5. Concept words plus sentence dictation equals 5. So you're going to take however many out of 5. Okay? However many they get correct. And then, if you would like to know where to post that, if you want to use this, on the Jefferson County website, under the Ufli tab, there is tracker for progress monitoring. Jad, we also put this on our website, right?
Yes, and we made it for every teacher, and their name, students' names are in there.
And it's under Learning Teams.
It's under Learning Teams.
That's
You
it.
go to the agenda page, Learning Team
I'll show you.
agenda.
Learning Teams.
There's tabs where it says folders, Ufli.
So if you go under kindergarten, hit Ufli,
And everyone's is done.
do the Klondike progress monitoring. It also gives you a spot there we added where you can add your core phonics assessment, fall, winter, and spring, you know, what they scored on that, or where they were.
Where they started.
Where they started, where they progressed to, and then where they are gonna end, okay? And then for each one, you see it starts with lesson 5, new concept, total points, just like your little page that I'm giving you the progress monitoring.
Can you go over that one more time? The
Sure.
at mat is the, how does it go from 3 to 5? Is that the
Okay.
irregular word?
Yes, the irregular word or the heart word is part of that.
So the new concept, let's say, is short A, it's at, mat, and sat.
Yes.
And then 2 extra points for and the I and I sat, or?
No, it's, everything counts 1 point. So at, mat, and are 3 points. right?
Oh,
That's
okay,
3
okay,
points,
okay.
Because and is a new concept.
Got it.
In this case. Anytime you teach a heart word, it's considered a new concept as well.
And then
Okay.
I sat.
And then I is 1 So if you just count how many words are in that lesson, and it'll tell you too on the progress monitoring chart that you're using here, it'll say new concept points, total points. So, which is the same way this is. Okay, any questions about those? No? Good. All right. That was the most important thing. I keep getting emails about that, so I felt like I needed to cover that really quickly and show you how to do that. Okay. So back to all right. If you've ever heard the term explicit instruction, it doesn't get more explicit than UFLY. This is going to be direct, explicit, between basically transactional between you and the student, and again, it doesn't get any more direct than that, I feel like. And a lot of our kids need that. Frequent checks for understanding. You know, the active participation, very routine-based, which I love it, because it is routine-based. Again, this is something that after the first time or two they do it, they're gonna catch right on and know exactly what to do every time they come to you. You will not have to explain it after the first couple of times, even for the littles. They're gonna go, oh, this is how we do this. So, let's see, modeling and demonstration, of course, you're gonna do it with them a couple of times. That's why the first 4 lessons are considered practice and they don't progress monitor those. Because again, you're getting into the routine of doing this. There's also guided practice, independent practice, maintenance and generalization. Some of the 4th and 5th graders, I know Ms. Metcalf came to see me yesterday. Some of her kids, and Ms. Jones knows this because she's tested them as well. Some of her kids might, I mean, let's say on the core phonics test, they did beautifully on all the words except maybe our controlled vowels. So what do we do with a kid who did poorly on our controlled vowels but did everything else on the test, you know, and was proficient on it? So we talked about that yesterday. I think it's a teacher decision, an instructional decision on your part, whether or not you want to pull those kids who maybe had, or, you know, struggled with our controlled vowels, pull them when you get to our controlled vowels, teach them the lessons, give them the progress monitoring, and then scoot them back out to independent learning again, okay? It doesn't have to be taught from start to finish for every student, okay? And you'll see that your students are gonna fall in different places, kind of on the chart, like on what lessons they start with. Now, kindergarten first, I don't expect yours to be past the first lesson probably, right? Or past the first set of lessons. You're gonna have to start them in the pre-alphabet, right? So if you think of it in micro phases. 4th and 5th, you might have some kiddos who need to start, you know, at the beginning with lesson 35, I think, is where it starts, 35A.
35A.
And so that means they know their letters, they know their letter sounds, they can recognize their letters. So at 35A, then we start with CBC words, okay? So, and you might have a group of kiddos that need short vowel practice. What I've tried to do is, especially for 4th and 5th, is I've gone on and grouped them for, you know, I scored them or found out where they were gonna start in UFLY, and then we went on and grouped them for you guys. And so they know exactly how many they have, who need this, need to start here, need to start here, need to start here. The other thing I want you to think about is when you're doing your UFLY groups, these are differentiated groups, they're not small groups, okay, there's a difference. You might have 3 kiddos who need to start at lesson 1. You might have 12 kids that need CBC short vowel review, like 5th grade, right? You might have 12 kids who don't need UFLY at all. So then, it's up to you, depending on your time and what your schedule looks like, how many, you know, how much time you have for groups to split up those kids, right? Who need your help, who need to do UFLY. And then again, if you've got some independent kiddos who maybe just did poorly on our controlled vowels, remember them, make yourself a note, pull them over when you get to our controlled vowels, teach them that lesson, give them that progress monitoring, and send them back out to be independent. That's really just for the feel like, I mean, it might even happen in second grade, but I really feel like that's when kids start to show, you know, they kind of start to pull out of the crowd. You know, they'll pull apart from each other and start to form their own groups. Probably mid to end of first grade and definitely into second grade. You've taught it before. Do you agree with me? That's kind of where you see them start to, you know, once you get past that first section, I think it ends with lesson 42. You get through all the letters, and then the kids really start to, you know, the accelerated ones will pull themselves and, you know, that type of thing. So it's okay to stop and regroup when you need to do that, okay? If you progress monitoring in kindergarten and you've got a kid who, you know, somehow caught on and knows every word that you're giving them, then you can just give them on, right? I mean, you don't have to, you can at that point split those groups, you know, into different levels, I guess you would call them. So, okay. All right. Oh, yeah, I do, we do, you do. They kind of follow that model. Love this. Decoding times linguistic comprehension equals reading comprehension. Obviously, if our kids can't read, if they don't know letters, they don't know how to decode letters to make words, then they're not going to read. And if they can't read, then they can't comprehend. So we have to start at the beginning. This is why we're encouraging this to be done with every student that needs it. Think of it as an intervention, but it's a classroom intervention. This is not a tier 3 like pull-out intervention. This is going to be for everybody. We know, looking at numbers, looking at assessment scores, we know that our kids need this foundation. And that's what it is, foundational skills. You know, for whatever reason, we might have had somebody in 4th or 5th grade who maybe missed a lot of school during kindergarten or 1st grade, missed a section, you know, that type of thing. And that's probably what we're seeing, Ms. Metcalf, with the few students that did really well on most things, but maybe have one little area that they didn't quite meet the benchmark for. Maybe they were absent, maybe they were sick, maybe they didn't get enough practice, right? Maybe it just didn't sink in at the time. So this is giving them the opportunity to kind of make up for lost time, kind of get them back where they need to be. Not gonna worry about that because we're doing that. So, suggested breakdown of the 90-minute reading block is 30, 30, 30, right? 30 minutes of Ufli, 30 minutes of differentiation, including small groups, supplemental support, center activities, and enrichment. That's basically either your skills block or your all block for 4th and 5th, okay? We talked about this yesterday. Oh, and another 30 minutes, language comprehension instruction to help build vocabulary, oral language, and background knowledge. I have a lot of ideas about the last one, but I won't go there yet. So you're doing Ufli for 20 to 30 minutes. Usually once you get in the routine, especially with the littles, it's not going to take 30 minutes. The older kids, I think you're going to fly through it in 20, okay? It's just all about that routine. Once you get that established, you can go as quickly as the students let you go, okay? The next part, the 30 minutes of differentiation. This is what I suggest. If you've got 3 groups going on in your classroom at once, 3 differentiated groups. For kindergarten first, at least, they probably need to be doing Ufli with you for one of the groups, working on practicing what they learned in Ufli in one of the independent groups, okay, which means, and there are lots of things I'll show you, lots of resources that you can use. There's roll and reads, there are games they can play with that specific, I mean, they even have it down to specific lesson. So they're not, you know, if it's lesson 5, they're using the words at and that, and the sound short A. So they're practicing the skill they just learned. What it, you know, I mean, if we don't practice it, how are we going to remember it? How are we going to utilize it? So, and then the last thing, the language comprehension. I haven't talked to the boss about this yet, but we have a meeting Thursday. We're going to discuss it. But I'm sure that you've heard, Mr. Lester talk about PWIN, which is using pictures, using a picture as a model and labeling the picture and helping develop their language skills. Here's the thing, it's not just for MLs, it's for all of our students. With our student population, we have a lot of kiddos who don't get experiences, right? They don't have the same experiences that maybe your kids do, or my child had when she was growing up. And so they don't always have the background knowledge to be able to synthesize what they're learning, okay? And so being able to take that little bit of time to teach a PWIN with them in the beginning of your day, whenever you can fit 5 minutes in, and do that PWIN together, and then giving them the opportunity to work with whatever you did, whatever the PWIN was that day, by giving them either word bank, sentence frames, anything like that, where they could write a sentence about the picture that you used that day. If they can make up their own sentence using a word bank. There are so many different things that we can do that would kind of help not only our MLs, but again, all of our students who struggle with writing. So it's teaching them language, it's teaching them writing, it's teaching them comprehension, all kinds of things all rolled into one. So anyway, but that's something we'll get to. But if you're doing anything from your skills block book or from your all block to meet the needs of your, well, especially for the older kids, for 3rd, 4th, and 5th, to meet the needs of maybe your independent kids who don't need Ufli, that's an important part too. Don't forget them. They need that enrichment time. They need that time to work independently on their own. And they can definitely do the grade level work from skills block and from all block. And they can also probably do more than that. I know that Ms. Jones and I talked, and I mean, those kids who are higher, she wants to put them in a are you gonna do a literacy or literature circle or
and vocabulary?
Yeah.
Like advanced vocabulary.
Yes. And the one thing that I have learned over the years, I don't want to sound like I'm preaching, because I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, but vocabulary. Our kids are low in vocabulary. Looking at the iReady scores, the top 2 things on in every grade level except kindergarten, because you guys didn't do iReady, but 1st through 5th grade, vocabulary, comprehension. Well, if you don't have the vocabulary, then you're not going to comprehend, right? So think of it that way. It's all linked together. Ufli is just the starting point to help them learn how to make a word, right? Or how to decipher a word, is what I like to say. So, let's see. This is just kind of a selected or a suggested pacing for what your lesson should look like. You know, concept 1, concept 2, and then you just go through. It's actually lesson day 1, lesson day 2. Lesson day 1, lesson day 2. Okay, and then progress monitoring or
So
reviewing.
on Friday, you would do both lessons spelling tests.
You can, yes.
Okay.
Or I think to start out, especially with the littles, when you finish a lesson, you progress monitor immediately.
So we don't forget.
Yes,
But
that's
for
what I would do.
fourth,
But for
fifth,
older, you can wait till Friday and
hopefully
do it
they
all on
change.
Friday if you prefer. Yeah. Does that make sense to everybody? You could even give them a whole sheet, you know, and say, we're gonna do this lesson on this one, this lesson on this one, and they turn in 1 page to you. Does that sound good? Yeah, but for the littles, I would definitely do it after your 2-day. Every lesson is 2 days, okay? So after your 2nd day, progress monitor, okay? All right. Where is it in our JCPS framework? Well, it's everywhere, right? I just went past it, I'm sorry. There we go. For primary, it's in your small group, okay, in your small group time. In our intermediate, it's gonna be during all block, okay? How and who are we teaching Ufli? This is where I made the note about differentiated groups versus small groups. That small groups are now referred to as differentiated groups and can consist of more than a small number of students. So like I said, you might have 4 students in a class who need to start with lesson 1, 10 who need to begin with, less than 66, and 12 who don't need UFly at all. So it's all about the planning, right? It's all about the planning and the organization, making sure that the kids who aren't doing UFly know exactly what they need to be doing. So Metcalf and I worked that out yesterday when we were going through her kiddos. She knows exactly who, even in her higher group, I think she had a couple who might need a little redirection, but she had plenty of teacher students who she said could step into that role and make sure that the ones who maybe didn't always follow directions or get it stayed on task. So that's a good thing. All right, we're not gonna go through that. Does everybody have a sound wall chart and a vowel valley? No? I never gave you one? Okay, I'll give you one. I'm sorry. I have one set left. You're the lucky winner. Yeah, but if we need more, we can make more. It's just, we had them, I guess, Jad and Christy made them, over the summer. And when I first started talking about UFly, I was like, okay, Christy, do we have this? Do we have this? Do the teachers have this? She's like, I don't know. So I said, okay, well, they need these. So, and we are working on heart words. That was the other thing that I wanted to let you guys know. I know I've said it before. All the heart words will be on the heart word cards. That, I don't know if you've seen a heart word. It's an irregular word. When I was a kid, they were called outlaw words. Do you remember you know what I'm talking about? Words that don't sound like they are spelled, or don't spell like, they're not spelled like they sound. I don't know, one of those. And so they call them heart words instead, and there's a little red heart. Always go, oh, it's a heart word. You gotta act for these kids. Has a little heart under the irregular part of the word. So they remember that. It's crazy, but they remember, oh, this is a heart word because this part doesn't sound like it's spelled. So that's really cool. I will go as soon as this is over and get you your posters. Basically, what I wanted to say is UFly, and specifically the core phonics assessment, is really about decoding, okay? Encoding is gonna have to come from other things. Encoding happens when you progress monitor in UFly, right? They're writing what they hear. So decoding is more what they're learning how to do, but the encoding is what we want the end product to be. We want them to be able to encode what they can decode, if that makes sense. Translating speech and manipulating letters. This is another thing, and I forgot to bring it with me. I created, everything is electronic for UFly, by the way. If you want to use it electronically, the way I suggest that you do it, when I had a small group, I used my laptop, set it up on a couple of books, and we just use my laptop. As long as the kids can see it and you can tap the button to go to the next slide, then you're good. If you have 10 or 12 in one group, you might want to use your smart board, okay? And maybe have a place where they can sit. I know not everybody has a carpet space. I know Metcalf and I talked about, they're just gonna have to come to seats, to desks closest to the board where they can see, and then do it from there. I've also seen it done whole group, where everybody is sitting at their desks and just doing it with the teacher whole group. So just finding a space to do it. Also, mats. I do have these letter mats or word work mats, blending mats actually is what they're called. I think kids need hands-on. That's just me personally, especially the little ones, but even 4th and 5th graders. I created some little mats that let them move the letters to make the words. So if you are interested in those, you can stop by and see them, and I'd be happy to make you a class set. I'm not gonna make, 30 for every little pumpkin in your classroom, but if we have a nice size class set, then that would be perfect. The older kids, you still only need a small group set because I would really just use those with kids who are starting UFly. The older kids are the ones who are higher up in UFly, or the one, obviously the ones who don't need UFly don't need one, but I think just the ones who are starting from the first lesson. So, all right, I'm sorry, I know it's time. I have so many things to say about it. Teaching irregular words, that's what a heart word looks like. If you haven't seen one, got the little heart under the irregular part. Automaticity, you guys know what that is, you've heard that word before. We want this to become automatic, to something that they do. So that way when they get either independent, they're out on their own, even when they're just independent but still doing Ufli, they're learning those procedures on how to decode words for themselves, right? And not relying on you to do that for them. If you have any questions, let's just scope and sequence, blah, blah, blah. Again, if you go through one of the slideshows and pick up on the routine, that's gonna be your best thing, to start. That's a great starting point. Learn the routine, be able to implement it, say, we don't have time to talk, we don't have time to play, this is what we're doing now. And I promise you that once they get that routine, they're gonna just go with it, and it's gonna make it super easy for you, okay? And if you need any help implementing, doing groups, figuring out your groups, anything like that, come see me, we'll figure it out. Metcalf and I had to do it visually, right? Yesterday we had to lay them out on the table and say, this person's doing this group, this person's doing this group, but it worked, right? We got it to work. So we can manipulate anything to make it work, okay? All right, thank you all.